He is a Pennsylvania state rep for the 181st District. He is currently the candidate for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Rep Malcolm Kenyatta. What's up, Rep Kenyatta? How are you?
I'm doing really well. And I think your viewers have heard me talk about Dr. Matt before. And so I'm rocking Dr. Matt, one of his sweatshirts here.
Yeah, University of, listen, you've been a friend of the show for a very long time. I was so excited to hear that you're running for senator. When you win, you would become the 12th black senator in U.S. history, which is insane. Also, the youngest, the first black senator of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I know you're getting this question a lot, but for my audience who knows you and knows your kind of work, big and small, why? Why are you running for senator?
So, I've said this over and over again, and folks will get sick of hearing me say it, but it's important. The country is fundamentally at a crossroads right now. We really are. Like, certainly we elect Joe Biden, which we needed to do. In Georgia, we won back the Senate, which we absolutely needed to do. But I'm reminding people everywhere I go that there's nothing written on a tablet somewhere that says America will definitely succeed. The way America has taken its promise, which has excluded a lot of folks over the course of our history, and expanded it and preserved it, the way that it's happened is that every generation has had folks and seen movements that have stepped up to demand that we expand that promise, to fight to preserve it for everybody. But when we think about what this cruel pandemic has exposed, is it has exposed a lot of what has already been broken. For folks in my district, there was an eviction crisis before this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
There were health disparities that were apparent before this pandemic. There were issues with the safety and quality of the school buildings as it relates to asbestos and mold and other things, which I've been talking about for a long time, before the need for increased ventilation because of the pandemic. And so you go down the list, and what you see is that government has not been focused in the way that it needs to be on working families and the needs of working families. And I think a big part of that is that we don't have enough working people in government. We don't have enough people for whom these issues aren't hypothetical or philosophical, but for whom these issues are real. And for me, these issues are real. And I believe that we can build the biggest coalition to get this done, a coalition made up of working people all across the Commonwealth, from Philly to Erie, from Scranton to Johnstown, and Uniontown, to Harrisburg, who know that we can do better.
So tell me, what are three things that you did as being the state rep that you are the most proud of?
I'll tell you this, that, the work that I've been doing started well before I decided to run for office. And I like to remind people that the way we get big things done is that we build the biggest coalition. This campaign for me will not be about a cult of personality. It's about how we build the biggest coalition. And I learned that organizing in my community prior to running for office, about the power of doing that and the importance of doing that. And so on all the things that I'm about to mention, these are things that we certainly didn't get done by ourselves, and we'll continue to push. One of the things we talked about, and I've talked about on this show, is the need for expanded mental health care for our young people, particularly in our schools, right? Moving to a community schools model that really looks at the school as a community hub to not just address the arithmetic and history and all these other things that our young people need to learn, but also to deal with our young people holistically. I was on the show, and I remember how many months ago, on the verge of tears about a young man in my district, Little Phil, who died by suicide, and worked with a Republican to introduce a bill called Phillips Law to reimagine the way we provide mental health care for our young people, and talked to then Vice President Biden about this in New Hampshire, about this story, about the need to do this. And he actually made Phillips Law as a part of one of his national policy proposals. And so getting a law that is just, a state thing onto the platform of the now president is something that's key. And you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll be introducing Phillips Law in the United States Senate. And we'll be getting that done, not just for kids in Pennsylvania, but everywhere. Also, when we look at what happened when we saw folks in 61 of 67 counties demanding racial justice after the tragic murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, demanding that we have accountability for law enforcement in our communities. You remember myself and members of the Black Caucus, staged a nonviolent civil protest, very much in the spirit of John Lewis, whose birthday was yesterday, and held up all of the business in session to get some bills moved. And we ended up getting multiple bills moved, bills that had been sitting around forever, moved to create more accountability as it relates to our law enforcement officers. We could also, talk about what I've been doing and got passed unanimously out of committee as it relates to our cyber infrastructure and protecting our digital infrastructure. People who are listening, I know, are from all across the country, so they may not have heard about this, but a couple of years, the entire Pennsylvania State Senate was brought to its knees because of a cyber ransomware attack on the Senate. And so a part of what I've said is, and everybody understands this, whether it's your personal private information or whether it is huge government agencies, we have a critical need right now and moving forward to make sure we're hardening our digital infrastructure to protect your data, but also to protect critical government services and government systems. And so, this gives you a broad sense of the types of things that I've done. But if I could, just one more, I know you asked for three, but I think that, in a legislature where we are not the majority party, right? The Democrats, we're not. And people understand this from my football fans out here. The quarterback gets all the praise, but it's defense that wins football games. And when we look at the win that we just had nationally for President Biden, it was the defense that I was able to lead on in terms of protecting votes that was key, I think. When you look at what happened with that election integrity committee, which had no integrity, where they were going to be able to subpoena ballots, impound voting machines, to physically compel testimony from elections officials as they were supposed to be counting votes. And we were able to do what we've done on every single one of those issues, build a big grassroots coalition of people to push back against what they were trying to do and to demand that every single vote was counted. And that's ultimately how we're going to win this campaign, by building a big grassroots movement. That's why thousands of people have already donated to our campaign, have gone to malcolmkenyatta.com and signed up to get involved.
Alan, question?
Sure. So being a DC resident, I know how old the Senate is. It's the old man's group. So they're going to basically say, why do you think it's your time? Why do you have the voice for now?
You would be the youngest person elected in the history of the Senate.
Well, let me say this. If you look at it, I would be 2 years older than Joe Biden when he ran, 2 years younger than John Ossoff, who just ran. So I'm the median age for young people running for the United States Senate. But let me also say this. The time for turns is over. The time for turns is over. We have a real responsibility and opportunity right now to take that promise of America. We all know it, right? Think of all these pivotal American documents, many of them authored right here in Philadelphia, about justice and freedom for all, about the pursuit of happiness, about all these inalienable rights that are bestowed upon us by our Creator. We know that those rights have not been extended to everybody, and that so many people have been locked out of something that our founders called inalienable. We have a responsibility right now to take that promise and make it real for all of us. And when I think about the challenges that we're facing right now, I'm somebody who understands how to get things done in the legislature. And in 2019, the PLS reporter that just follows everything we do in Harrisburg pointed out the fact that me, as a very, progressive lawmaker, was able to work with conservative lawmakers on everything from mental health care, which I mentioned, to criminal justice reform, to dealing with recidivism. And so we need people who understand how to get things done. And I think the way we do things is that we have a government that is reflective of the full experience of Americans. And when I think about the challenges we face right now, Al, from student debt to housing to the climate crisis to criminal justice reform, these are issues that are impacting, my, demographic in terms of my age, impacting us the most. And so the fact that we don't have somebody who in their bones understands what's going on these issues because they've lived them, because they're living them, the fact that we don't have enough of those voices represented in the United States Senate is a part of the reason our government hasn't moved as aggressively as it needs to on so many of the things that I fought for a long time.
And listen, when I hear people say, oh, the youngest this, that, we only have 3 black senators right now. Like, spare me the stats and numbers and demographics that clearly have not worked out for us.